Greetings from our Temecula studios. Welcome to the Ryder Report. I'm Ryder Bullock. A lot to get to today. And sadly, the first half of this program is going to be dealing with stuff that didn't take place on a field or a court. Got the sad, tragic news out of Dallas. We'll get to that. Plus Antonio Brown arrested in Dubai. We'll have that story. And Eric Spoelstra, his house has burnt down in Miami. We have the latest. And then two sports. We're covering Thursday night football. Broncos, Raiders in a tight one in Denver. Plus, LeBron James has been cleared to play. We'll tell you what all that means and what it will do for the Lakers, who have not missed a beat. So welcome again. This is the Ryder Report. I'm Ryder Bullock. And we begin tonight with something that's just heartbreaking. Something that goes way beyond the game. Beyond wins and losses. Beyond contracts and draft picks. You heard the news out of Dallas. Marshawn Keeneland, a 24-year-old defensive end for the Cowboys, second-year player, tremendous promise, had just made a big play on special teams just Monday, was found dead of an apparent suicide after a police chase. This is one of those moments that stops you in your tracks. You can't script this stuff. You can't make sense of it. And before we start forming opinions, before we start asking why he ran or what happened in that car chase, let me just say something right now. We don't know what was going on inside that young man's mind. Let's not rush to judgment. I've seen guys play through injuries, through family tragedies, through pressure that most people couldn't handle for 5 minutes. But what you've never see, what you can't see, is what's happening internally. Marshawn lost his mom while preparing for the draft. Think about that. You're 22, 23, your entire future is in front of you, and your biggest supporter, your mother, dies suddenly. That's a kind of pain that doesn't just fade away because you make the NFL. He wore her ashes around his neck, for crying out loud. That tells you right there how deep this wound was. Now, according to the reports, there was a police pursuit. He didn't stop. He fled the scene of an accident. And later, police said he might be suicidal. They tried to reach him. They called. They texted. They sent a drone. His girlfriend told them that he had a gun and said, quote, "He will end it all." 3 hours later, he was gone. And here's the thing. That last part, those final hours, we'll never really understand. We'll never know what triggered it. What was racing through his mind? What kind of fear or pain or hopelessness pushed him over the edge? So please, let's stop trying to make sense of it by throwing out blame. Don't blame the police. Don't blame the team. Don't blame the pressure. Sometimes a person just reaches a breaking point. And by the time anyone realizes it, it's too late. And I'll tell you something, the NFL, to their credit, they're getting better at addressing mental health. But this tragedy shows you we've still got a long way to go. These players are young. They're thrown into the spotlight, into wealth, into criticism, into expectation all at once. They're 22, 23, 24 years old. They go from being college kids to national celebrities overnight. Everyone's watching. Everyone's judging. And if you're hurting inside, if you're lonely, if you're grieving, it's easy to think you've got nowhere to go. That's not weakness. That's human. I saw a message from Jeffrey Simmons, the Titans defensive tackle, who said, even when someone is carrying the biggest smile, make sure to check in on them. You just never know. That's powerful, and it's true. How many of us have seen someone smiling, laughing, even playing a great football game, and never guessed what they were battling demons inside? Dak Prescott knows the pain. Solomon Thomas knows it. Both lost siblings to suicide. These are people who've made it their mission to talk about it, to break that wall of silence. And listen, if you're listening tonight, if you're hearing this right now and you're struggling, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Life gets brutally hard sometimes. You can feel trapped or lost or like you've got nowhere left to call, but I promise you there's help. There is a way out that doesn't end like this. Please reach out to somebody, call 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It's free. It's confidential. You'll talk to a real person who wants to help. No judge. Please don't sit in silence. Don't think you've got to handle it alone because you're tough or proud or because you don't want to be a burden to anyone. You are not a burden. You matter. And the rest of us, whether it's friends, family, teammates, coworkers, we've got to do better at checking in. Not just the casual "you good" text, but really listen. When someone starts to pull away, when their energy changes, when they seem off, don't ignore it. Marshawn Keeneland's story is tragic, yes, but maybe, just maybe, it can remind us how fragile people can be, even when they look strong. We've got to see people as more than athletes, more than headlines, more than the jersey. We've got to see them as human beings. You know, when I think about Marshawn's short life, a kid from Western Michigan who fought his way into the NFL, who made big plays on Sunday, who wore his mother's ashes around his neck, I think about the promise, the pride, the hope, and how for reasons we'll never fully understand, that light went out too soon. It's a loss for the Cowboys, for the league, for every teammate who suited up with him, but most of all, for the people who loved him. So tonight, let's remember Marshawn Keeneland, not for the way he died, but for the way he lived, with passion, with effort, with a smile that by all accounts lit up every room he entered. Rest in peace, Marshawn. And folks, again, if you need help, again, call 988. Talk to somebody. Don't wait until tomorrow. Okay, let's move on. We just finished talking about a heartbreaking story, and now we got another one. But this one's tragic in a very different way. We're talking about Antonio Brown. Yes, that Antonio Brown, the former All-Pro wide receiver, the guy who was a Hall of Fame trajectory. And now here we are in November 2025, and he's been arrested on an attempted murder charge after a shooting at a celebrity boxing event in Miami this past summer. You can't make this stuff up. According to police, Brown was arrested by U.S. Marshals in Dubai. Let me say that again, in Dubai. Okay? They flew him back to New Jersey, and now he's awaiting extradition to Miami. The details, as reported, are pretty shocking. After that boxing event back in May, there was some kind of altercation. A fight breaks out. Brown allegedly grabs a gun from a security guard and fires 2 shots at a man he'd been fighting with earlier. One of those bullets grazed the guy's neck. That's attempted murder, folks. 2nd degree. Carries up to 15 years in prison. And let me tell you something. You can't keep running from your own chaos. Now, if you followed this show, for any length of time, I'm talking about the Antonio Brown show, you know how great Antonio Brown was. Okay, on the field, he was spectacular, but also the slow, painful unraveling that's been happening since he left Pittsburgh. This is a guy who's had everything: talent, fame, money, Super Bowl rings. Opportunity after opportunity, and yet one bad decision after another. Battery charges, domestic violence altercations, that bizarre standoff over child support, the infamous moment in New York. Remember that? He rips off his jersey, throws his gloves, jogs off the field in the middle of the game. I mean, we've seen it all, right? And that was the moment for a lot of us when we said, this is a guy who's lost control. Now, I'm not here to pile on. I'm not here to gloat or mock. I'm just telling you, this is what happens when nobody around a superstar tells him no. When you're as good as Antonio Brown, people protect you, excuse you, enable you until the day comes when the talent's gone, the headlines fade, and the only person left is the one in the mirror. And by that point, it's too late. The system, the fame, the entourage, it all collapses. And you're left with consequences. This is the latest and maybe the darkest chapter in that story. And what really gets me is that it didn't have to end like this. Antonio Brown wasn't just some talented receiver. He was an all-time great. Go look at the numbers. Nearly 13,000 yards, 83 touchdowns, 928 receptions. Those are Canton-level stats. Those are career-defining numbers. He was the heartbeat of that Pittsburgh offense for years. Big Ben to AB, unstoppable. But football was never the problem. The problem was what was going off the field. Now, you look back and you can't help but wonder, am I, and I'm not diagnosing anybody here. I'm not a doctor, but there was something deeper. CTE, mental illness. The guy took some huge hits. Remember that? The Vontaze Burfitt hit back in the playoff game. Brutal shot to the head. After that, he was never quite the same. And I'm thinking, that's worth mentioning because, again, like we said in the last segment about Marshawn Keeneland, we don't always know what's happening inside someone's head. But, and this is important, that doesn't excuse behavior like this. It might explain it, but it doesn't justify it. You fire a gun at somebody, you're facing prison, end of story. So now the question becomes, is this the end of the line for Antonio Brown? Football-wise, it ended years ago. I'm talking morally, socially, legally. This may be rock bottom. And maybe that's what it takes for someone like him to finally look at himself and say, I need help. Because what else is there left to lose? I remember when Tom Brady brought him into Tampa Bay, everyone said if anybody can get through to him, it's Brady. He vouches for him, gives him a shot, even lets him live in his house. And for a brief moment, a brief shining moment, it looked like it worked. Super Bowl ring, redemption arc, the whole thing. Then boom, it collapses again. And now we're here. A 37-year-old man, once one of the best in the world at what he did, sitting in a jail cell halfway across the world facing attempted murder charges. Let me tell you, that's not a fall. That's a free fall. And as much as people love to throw around the world tragedy, this one is. But not just because of what happened, but because of what could have been. We saw flashes of brilliance. We saw greatness, but greatness doesn't save you from yourself. And I'll end it with this. I said it earlier about Marshawn Keeneland. I'll say it again here. If you're struggling, talk to someone. If you're angry, if you're hurting, if you feel like you're losing control, get help before it reaches a moment like this. Because once the trigger is pulled, once the damage is done, there's no coming back. Antonio Brown's story should be a warning to every young athlete out there. Talent can make you rich, but character keeps you free. And once you lose that, it doesn't matter how many touchdowns you've scored. The world stops cheering, and you're just another headline. So that's where we are. And we go from one unbelievable story to another. And I don't even know where to begin with this one. Damon Jones, former NBA player, assistant coach, and yes, one-time teammate of LeBron James, pleaded not guilty today to the charges that he was part of a rigged poker game operation that was feeding gamblers inside injury information about LeBron and Anthony Davis. You can't make this stuff up. Let's lay it out. Federal court in Brooklyn, 2 separate cases. Jones, 49 years old, standing there with a court-appointed lawyer, pleading not guilty to wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy. And here's the part that stuns me. This isn't just some gambling ring. This is an alleged mob-tied operation. Gambino, Giovanse, Bonanno families all involved in these poker games using rigged machines, hidden cameras, even x-ray tables. We're talking straight out of Martin Scorsese movies here. And somehow Damon Jones, a guy who made over $20 million in his NBA career, winds up right in the middle of it. Now, according to the prosecutors, he wasn't just playing cards. He was the lure. They used the former NBA guys like him to draw in other players. Come play poker with Damon Jones, the former Cav, LeBron's buddy. And then once those guys sat down, the deck was stacked. Literally, he was allegedly paid $2,500 to show up at one of these games in the Hamptons and play along. And get this, prosecutors say he texted his partners, y'all know what I'm doing. You read that and you think, Damon, what are you doing? But the poker is only half of it. The bigger bomb shows the sports betting angle. Prosecutors say Jones sold inside injury information to bettors. Information that wasn't public about LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Let that sink in. He was supposedly texting a bettor, telling him to get big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the word got out that LeBron wasn't playing. The Lakers lose that game 115-106 and the bettors cash in. That's insider trading for sports. Same concept. You're using privileged information to make money off the betting market. And then a few months later, another text, this time about Anthony Davis. Supposedly said he'd be limited against Oklahoma City. The bettor drops $100,000 on the Thunder. Guess what happens? Davis plays 27 minutes, scores 27 points, grabs 15 boards. Lakers win. The bet loses. The bettor's angry. He wants his $2,500 tip refunded. That's the level of chaos we're talking about here. Now, let me tell you, this story isn't just about Damon Jones. This cuts right into the integrity of professional sports. We're living in an era where gambling is everywhere, on your phone, on your TV, during the broadcast. Even the leagues themselves are partnered with sports books. But you can't have a league where insiders, coaches, trainers, players, or former players are leaking private injury info for money. Once that line gets crossed, everything the league does is up for question. That's the same kind of scandal that can shake the NBA to its core. And remember, Jones isn't alone. Chauncey Billups, a Hall of Famer, and current Trailblazer coach, and Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat were also named in this same federal sweep. Okay, now Chauncey Billups, is on paid absence right now, and so is Terry Rozier. So their NBA careers are in lingo till this goes away, but they're also in this same sort of sweep. 30 arrests. This is not some fringed operation. This is the feds. Wiretaps, surveillance, text messages, FBI. If this stuff is true, and we'll let the courts sort that out, the NBA has a massive, massive problem on its hands. You know, I've been around covering the NBA for a long time, and I remember stories of the old mob days of sports gambling, right? Well, Jimmy the Greek. I mean, he big guy there, and college basketball point shaving scandals back in the 50s. We read about him. Pete Rose in baseball. We know that. Tim Donaghy in the NBA. We've seen that on 60 Minutes and elsewhere. But every few decades, it comes back around. The names change, the technology changes, but the story's the same story. Somebody thinks they can beat the system, and it never ends well. Damon Jones wasn't just a bench warmer. This guy had a long career, won a championship as an assistant coach with LeBron in Cleveland in 2016, and now he's standing in a courtroom with his mom and stepdad putting their house up for bond. Unbelievable. And I'll say this, if the allegations about the mob connections are true, the NBA has to take a hard look in the mirror. Can't be in bed with the gambling industry on one hand and then turn a blind eye to this stuff. Because if fans start to think the outcomes aren't on the level, if they start wondering whether that missed shot or that rest night or that mystery injury was really just strategy, the whole sport loses credibility. Damon Jones once called himself the best shooter in the world. Maybe he should have stuck to that. Because right now, he's taking shots he can't win. We'll keep an eye on this one. The next court date is November 24th. They're taking plea deals. They're talking about them. But this one is far from over. And that just makes you stop for a second. I mean, you think about sports. You think about competition. You think about the grind. But then life just steps in and reminds you how fragile everything really is. And that's what this news story coming out of Miami early this morning is about. A fire, a massive fire, completely destroyed the home of Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra. 20-plus units dispatched. They said flames as tall as trees. And when Spoelstra landed back in Miami, the team charter literally touching down minutes after the call came in, he gets off that plane and goes straight to his property. Cameras captured him walking around the rubble, hands on his head, just disbelief. Now, thankfully, nobody was home. No injuries. That's the most important part. The Heat put out a statement, and I'll read part of it here. We are grateful to learn that nobody was harmed in that fire at Coach Spoelstra's residence this morning. Our thoughts, prayers, and assistance are with Sopo and his family. And I got to tell you, that's just classic Spo. The team says he plans to coach Friday night against Charlotte. That's who he is. That's the kind of guy you're talking about. And he's a pro. Okay, he's been with this organization since '95, started as a video coordinator, worked his way all the way up. The guy is the Miami Heat, right? You can't talk about the Miami Heat and not think about Spoelstra. He's been there for all 3 titles, 2 of them as a head coach, and of course, he's also just been announced as the coach of the 2028 U.S. Olympic men's basketball team. Now, they're still investigating the cause of the fire. That's going to take time. These kinds of fire investigations can go on for weeks, depending on what kind of damage, what kind of electrical system were in the house, how recent the renovations were. And Spoelstra did reportedly do extensive work to the property after purchasing it late last year. But you think about that moment, flying back from Denver, probably reviewing tape, maybe even sleeping. You land, and suddenly everything you own is gone. All the memories, the keepsakes, everything tied to your family life. The basketball world can feel so big. The lights, the cameras, the arenas, but moments like this bring it right back down to what really matters. You know, I've said this for a long time. Spoelstra doesn't get enough credit nationally. He's one of the few modern coaches who's built something resembling a culture in an era where it's all about player movement. The Heat don't win every year, but they believe every year. That's Pat Riley's DNA. That's Spoelstra's DNA. And they think about the timing here, right? The man's got to turn around, walk into a press conference tomorrow, field questions about zone defense, Tyler Hero's minutes, right? With less than 48 hours earlier, his home was literally in flames. I mean, that's perspective, folks. That's real life. Credit to Miami. And his life, but real credit here to the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. Chief Victoria Bird said the flames were massive. Crews were both on the ground and in the air, and they contained it to just that property. No nearby homes were damaged. She called her team's efforts excellent, and honestly, based on the footage, they earned that praise. He just hopes Spoelstra and his family get all the support they need. The organization's already rallied. You can tell that locker room's going to be behind them. And I'll tell you what, tomorrow night's going to be emotional. That's not just another home game. So prayers up for the Spoelstra family tonight. Nobody was hurt, thank God. Everything else is just fine. Okay, let's shift gears. We go from the fire in Miami to the fire that just never seems to burn out. That's LeBron James. The man is about to start his 23rd NBA season. You heard that right, 23 years. It's unheard of in professional basketball. And he's still relevant, still producing, still chasing greatness. Now the news today, LeBron is cleared for contact activity. That's the big step. He's been dealing with sciatica, the lower body nerve issue that flared up back in training camp, shut down early, hadn't practiced or played yet this season, but now the Lakers say he's moving into that next phase. Contact work. And will be reevaluated again in 1 or 2 weeks by the team doctor. Now here's the thing. The Lakers are going out on a 5-game road trip starting in Atlanta this weekend. And LeBron's not expected to travel. So you're not going to see him courtside. You're not going to see him suit up, but that's fine. The key is that he's doing 5-on-5. He's testing that back, and he's inching toward return. And by the way, let's just pause and appreciate what we're talking about. The man is 40 years old. One of the best conditioned athletes in any sport. Still draws a crowd like no one else. And for him to be on the verge of another comeback for his 23rd season, it's astonishing. You've got a great head coach, J.J. Redick, in his second year. And he's right in the middle of one of the most high-profile coaching jobs in the sport, and he's done pretty good. And he said there's no target date yet, just a general timeline. They're being cautious, as they should be. You don't want to rush sciatica. That's not a sprained ankle. It's a nerve issue that can flare up and take you out for months if you mismanage it. But you know what's really impressive? The Lakers haven't missed a beat. They've been winning. They're 7-2. Luka Doncic. Now remember, this is Luka's first full season alongside LeBron. Dropped 35 points last night in that near 118-116 win over San Antonio. That's 5 straight wins, 3 games in 4 nights. No LeBron, no problem. And that's the story within the story. The Lakers team looks deep, looks balanced. And they look like they finally figured out how to play winning basketball without needing LeBron to be the savior every single night. You've got Austin Reeves managing through bumps and bruises. You've got Donick settling in as the perimeter playmaker, and Redick's been spreading the minutes around. That's the mark of a coach who understands the grind. Now, some of you are going to ask, and I can hear it already, Ryder, is LeBron going to be the same? Can he still play 35 minutes a night? Can he still get you 25, 8, and 8? And look, the production might dip a bit, but what matters, his presence changed the game. His IQ, his passing, his command, that's what the team feeds off of, and don't underestimate the motivation. This guy has heard everything for the last decade. He's too old. He's chasing stats. He's done. He's still here. He's not done. I'll tell you what, if he gets back healthy by mid to late November, maybe that November 18th home game, and the Lakers are still sitting at top 4 in the West, you're going to have people talking about this team as legit contenders again. And by the way, it's not impossible. He's done some on-court work with the Lakers G League affiliate in El Segundo while the team's away. That's what's been floating around right now. LeBron may play in a G League game. Can you imagine? You'd have a sold-out gym, cameras everywhere, fans hanging out from the rafters. Only LeBron could turn a rehab run into an event. So here's where it stands. Cleared for contact. Reevaluation in 1 to 2 weeks, no travel on the road, possible full return around mid-November, and meanwhile the Lakers keep winning. That's the formula you want. You start rehabbing smart, your roster building confidence, your coach learning how to manage the room, and we've seen this, right? We've seen the greats fade, hang on too long, or walk away too early. LeBron, he's rewriting the script. You don't play 23 seasons unless you're prepared. You know, you have to diet. Your discipline has to be good, and it's at an elite level every single day. So, you know, LeBron is still relevant, still polarizing, still must watch. So for now, Lakers fans, breathe easy. The king is close. He's coming back soon, and when he does, he's going to make sure the rest of the league remembers who still runs L.A. Okay, let's get to what's trending here in sports. Thursday night football just wrapped up. The Broncos beat the Raiders 10-7. Bo Nix flinged a touchdown pass to Troy Franklin, and Broncos win over the Raiders. Broncos now 8-2. Raiders fall to 2-7. Raiders played a great first half, but tied it up. Broncos tied it up at halftime, and then took the field goal that made the difference. College football for you. Georgia Southern defeated Appalachian State 25-23. Southern Florida defeated UTSA 55-23. Suns get it done over the Clippers 115-102 in Phoenix. Men's college basketball scores for you. Grambling and Iowa State duking it out. Cyclones get it done 102-62. Florida defeats North Florida 104-64. Louisville takes on Jackson State 106-70 in favor of Louisville. Auburn defeated Merrimack 95-57. That's what's trending in sports. Here is tonight's final thought. It's been one of those days in sports where the headlines remind us just how complicated the world behind the game can be. Former NFL star arrested on an attempted murder charge, a respected coach watching his home go up in flames, a young player gone far too soon. And yet amid all of that, we see how the business of sports broadcasting has changed. Too often now, what passes for sports talk is little more than theater. Loud voices chasing clicks, hot takes replacing hard truths. The real stories, the human stories, too often get blurred beneath the noise. What we need, what audiences deserve, are sports shows that slow down, that report, reflect, and respect the people involved. Shows that don't chase what's trending, but tells us what matters. Because sports aren't just about scores and highlights. They're about life and loss and the choices people make under pressure. When we forget that, we lose sight of why we started caring in the first place. That's the kind of journalism that still matters, and always will. That'll do it for me on this Thursday night. Till next time, Ryder Bullock reporting. Thank you for your time,